and wounded many people. The government's official death count is 189, but other sources put the toll much higher. More than 100,000 people have fled the bloodshed to Uzbekistan, but tens of thousands are cramped on the Kyrgyz side of that closed border, trying to head off a humanitarian catastrophe. Russia, the U.S. and other countries are flying in aid to the region. The UN's first aid flights arrived Wednesday with tents, blankets and sleeping mats. Let's get more details now on the situation. Joining us from a refugee camp in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, is our senior international correspondent, Matthew Chance. Hi, Matthew.
Zane, hi, and some of that humanitarian aid you've been mentioning coming in from the UN is being assembled right behind me. You can see they're putting up these white tents to house refugees. Some of them are filled with blankets and other humanitarian supplies as well. So the aid is starting to come through finally to help take care of the tens of thousands, in fact nearly 120,000 refugees who the Uzbek government say have now flooded in from southern Kyrgyzstan are being housed here. We're amongst those tens of thousands of people, of course. Some of them have been injured in these fierce ethnic clashes in southern Kyrgyzstan. Earlier, we were able to visit a few hospitals in the region and listen to some of those victims and their traumatic experiences.
They're the survivors of the ethnic bloodshed ravaging southern Kyrgyzstan. Some have gunshot wounds, others are stabbed or severely beaten, but all of them are ethnic Uzbek with terrifying stories to tell. We found 65-year-old Kifmatulo still in agony. Doctors say a bullet has shattered his arm. He told me an ethnic Kyrgyz gang torched his house in Osh, shot him, then ordered his entire family to leave the country. Kyrgyzstan is for the Kyrgyz, he says they shouted at him. There's no place for Uzbeks in our land. It's a message of intolerance delivered with appalling violence.
Well, these wards are filled with the victims of the violence in southern Kyrgyzstan. This is Erkin. He can't speak to us very clearly because he's been so badly beaten by what he says were Kyrgyz gangs. His skull is fractured, his jaw is broken. Doctors say he's had boiling water poured over his genitals as if to torture him. And he's had his throat slit from ear to ear. Frankly, it's a miracle that this guy survived.
And it's not just men who've been targeted. Amongst the thousands who fled to safety in camps along the Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan border, disturbing testimony is emerging of Uzbek women being raped by Kyrgyz gangs. In hospital, we met two traumatized sisters. They agreed to talk only if we hid their faces. We were taken to a cafe where our men were separated from us, one of them tells me. Then, me and my sisters were raped at knife point as our mother was held back. They recorded us on cell phones and were laughing, she says. It's just one sign the true horrors in the past week in Kyrgyzstan may only now be starting to emerge.
Well, Zane, you speak to every one of these refugees in these camps all along the Uzbek border with Kyrgyzstan, and they've all got some kind of horror story, and that means that all of them are really desperately afraid of going back to their homes in southern Kyrgyzstan. Zane.
Matthew, how much aid has reached them so far?
Well, here in the camps in Uzbekistan, people are doing pretty well, given the fact they're in refugee camps. They've got tents, they've got blankets, they've got food. Most importantly, they've got security. The big international concern at the moment, though, is for the tens of thousands of people who have left their homes inside southern Kyrgyzstan but haven't got to these camps in Uzbekistan. They're displaced internally within Kyrgyzstan. It's believed there may be as many, according to the Red Cross, as 60,000 people there displaced without proper food, without proper shelter. And that's where the big effort is now, to try and get the aid that is needed by them to those people on the ground, by the various aid organisations, Zane.
CNN senior international correspondent Matthew Chance reporting from that refugee camp and speaking to people there and giving us a real sense of the harrowing situations that they have faced. Thanks, Matthew. A popular tourist spot is underwater.